Hey guys, it's Clovis, and what you just saw was a real thing. This is something you can do yourself. Simply play the highest attack monster you possibly can play in your opening hand at the very start of the duel on your first turn, right in the middle of the field, and flip it face up. And if you keep doing this, eventually Seto Kaiba will play a card to his right and then move 2 spaces forward and land right in front of your monster. Then when he ends his turn, you can just attack him, and then play another card over your monster and attack him again, and win. Now, this is actually a very relevant thing in a Yu-Gi-Oh! Duels of the Roses speedrun. This is actually the strategy. This is the fastest way to beat this guy, and for casual players, it's quite fun and entertaining, and for speedrunners, it's kind of just what you want him to do, and the best way to beat him as quickly as possible. So, in an attempt to explain what is going on, there are 2 things that Seto Kaiba can do in an opening hand under normal circumstances. Let's say we do nothing, he is either going to play a monster in front of him, or he's going to play a card to his left. However, what happens when you have a monster in the middle of the field that is a higher attack than the monster that he wants to play? He, for whatever reason, thinks that it's a bad decision to play his monster in front of him because your monster is threatening to kill it by being 2 spaces away, even though it's on a normal tile. So, what he does is he plays it on the next available space, which is the tile to his right. And so now, after he's blocked off the right side of his path, he wants to go to his normal spot, but because that's blocked, he decides to go all the way around the labyrinth to get to his original spot. And so this just happens to be that the first 2 tiles he moves, he just jets himself to the middle of the field, right in front of your monster. So, yes, this is really what's happening. Even though he was so afraid of playing his monster 2 spaces away from yours, he has no problem moving right in front of it and passing in a situation where you can just attack him. Just play the highest attack monster possible. And the thing is, I did say to flip it face up, but actually, if you can't create 1500 attack or higher, you can actually leave your card face down, because Seto Kaiba, while he has 4000 life points, actually assumes that all your cards' face down attack values are 1500. Now, this is where it gets a little bit more complex, but basically, the gist of this is that this is the game's way of creating a scenario where they will only attack over your face downs if they have a relatively high attack monster. If he wants to play a card in front of him that's lower than 1500 attack, he plays it to the right. If you have any card face down, even if it's a spell or a trap, like a fake trap, you literally can get him to move forward with a fake trap. I am not kidding you. You can try it, it's just a lot less likely. He has to open with a monster for him to do this, and if he doesn't have any monsters that he can play, he will play a spell or trap to his left, in which case he was never going to move forward. However, if he plays a card in front of him, when you have a card in the middle, it's because that monster he's played is a higher attack than the card you have in the middle. And if you have a face down card, he will obviously play something like a Battle Ox in front of him, which is 1700 attack. That beats your face down that he thinks is 1500 attack, whereas a Mystic Horseman he will play to the right because that's 1300 attack, which is lower than what he assumes your face down to be. The point of this is that you can beat Seto Kaiba really fast in just literally 2 turns if you just play the highest attack card in your opening hand face up in the middle tile of the whole field. And if Seto Kaiba wants to play a monster in front of him that is a lower attack than your monster, he'll play it to the right and then he'll move forward because he's pathfinding back to his original location. I didn't figure out this strategy at all. This is a common speedrun strategy. It's been used for a while now. However, I was able to conclude that it is his pathfinding because what you can do is actually change his field using a modding tool to all crush tiles except the original labyrinth tiles. But if you actually block his normal path with a labyrinth tile, you'll notice that Seto Kaiba actually navigates around these labyrinth tiles into his normal spot. And you can also obstruct this in other ways, in which he will actually give up and he won't find a path to his normal route. but as long as there's a path through the middle, he will take it, even if your monster is in the middle, and this must have just been a fail-safe that they did. We don't really know entirely why his AI is programmed like this, but like all AI in the game, you can tell that they just weren't fully prepared for every single scenario, and ultimately the AI in this game just aren't really that good, and that's really not surprising to anyone. So anyways, that's how to beat Seto Kaiba in 2 turns. I wanted to contextualize this to you because it's cool casually, and it's also a speedrun strategy that is relevant to anyone speedrunning the game, in which case, make sure you stay subscribed and stay on the lookout, because I plan on doing more of these videos on how to beat opponents within the lowest amount of turns, and it just so happens that Seto Kaiba is one of the only duelists you can actually realistically beat in 2 turns, and you can do it with any deck, you can do it with any set of monsters as long as you have 4k damage inclusive within the first 2 turns in direct attacks. You can kill him in 2 turns. Otherwise, you have to kill him after you make him move in the middle field in the 3rd turn or whatever, but it's still quite fast. And that's pretty much as far as that duel goes. And of course, I have to plug my Twitch, because that's where I do my speedrunning of the game, so maybe you can see me get a godlike Seto on some run today live. So come check me out, and thanks in advance, and if not, check out this video where, or here, I don't know, it'll be somewhere on the screen, in the end screen, where if you want to know how to see the opponent's cards, I already did a video on this, so you can go have a look at that. Right, so assessing our options, because he doesn't move forward all the time, we need a card such as Dimension Hole. If you open with Dimension Hole, it's actually arguably safer, especially if you don't have a high amount of attack, to actually put Dimension Hole in the center of the field. So as you know, while it's face down, it does mean that if he actually wants to play a monster that's lower than 1500, he will play it to the right and then move forward. But in a situation where he doesn't actually open with a monster and he plays to his left, you can now activate Dimension Hole forward and then move where the corner he is and play a monster where he actually wants to move, which is a spot he's right in front of, and you can go ahead and just attack him directly. After you do this, he actually will move back to his normal spot. He will pathfind back to his original spot, and pretty much how the duel plays out actually does depend on where he decides to play. So you can see he wants to challenge our warrior here. So he plays a monster to his right and he moves it to our warrior, but now he's in a position where we can just attack him directly again. You'll also notice that his path to the right to his normal spot is blocked by his own monster. So he doesn't actually move there. Because he had no option to move to the left, he does decide to move to the right. And at this point, a card that's useful here is the Shadow Ghoul. Shadow Ghoul is very good on this duel, and I will demonstrate why after this clip. But this is partially why. Any of the Stonehenge duels, Shadow Ghoul is actually quite crazy, because you have to put it on the Labyrinth, and then you can attack for 2100, because Wall Shadow, even though it's a brick wall with a ghost inside it, is considered a warrior. So I have mentioned that Wall Shadow is a very useful card, and there's something actually quite unique about the interaction between Wall Shadow, or Shadow Ghoul rather, in this duel. So you can see the sensible option here is to try to play the highest attack card possible. You got 2800 attack, which is pretty strong. It's actually very hard for him to open with something that beats that. He would need something like Sky Dragon with 2 Dragon Treasures. But of course, he doesn't want to play Monster anyway, so even if you have a really good opening hand, doesn't mean he's going to move forward. So at this point, you can kind of predict what play we are going to attempt to make. He's going to move forward to his normal spot, and then he's right next to the Labyrinth, in which we can play a Shadow Ghoul. The reason why this clip is long is because he activated the Mystical Elf, so this means we need to attack him 3 times instead of 2 times. But I figured this was a good demonstration, just to show that this actually does work, and you can keep just using this card until you actually can kill him. Now, it's not guaranteed, but I will explain as we go along. But of course, the play here is to create your wall shadow, and now you attack him directly for the 2100. And then what's going to happen after this is, because obviously you're threatening him with a monster, he's going to move away. Now, if you notice, his path to his normal spot still is not blocked. So, if we pass, he can return to this spot. Now, he doesn't return to that spot because he's actually just blocked his own path with that card he just played. Now, we don't really decide what cards he plays. And by the way, he does activate Mountain only on the middle tile, but because I have a monster blocking that middle tile, he actually played it right in front of it because he couldn't actually complete that move. So that's kind of funny. Anyway, so see how the path is no longer blocked? He actually moves back to that spot. It's actually irrelevant of Wall Shadow being there, but it's entirely relevant of that path to that spot being blocked. So because he opened up the path himself by moving his card out of the way, he actually moves back to the original spot he wants to, just because of how his pathfinding works. So of course, he moves away. Now he doesn't move 2 tiles away because there's actually no safe spot for him to go that's 2 tiles away from the Wall Shadow. Now of course here, I could move left and attack him directly, but I do want to just demonstrate that this Wall Shadow, it is possible for him to just keep returning to the spot, and of course, he does immediately. Sometimes he would play a card first, but here he didn't. I don't know exactly why, or what determines if he plays a card before he moves or not. Might be just what he wants to play or what he wants to achieve in that hand. But of course, once he's on this normal spot, you can just keep attacking the Wall Shadow. So just leave the Wall Shadow there if you are killing this guy with a Wall Shadow, and he may or may not move back to that tile, but the best move is to leave your Wall Shadow and then hope that he keeps the path open so he can path back to his original spot. Now remember, in a speedrun, if you open with a bunch of options, your safest one is actually Dimension Hole. If you have a really high attack, you can take the gamble, but ultimately, if he doesn't move forward, if he can't play a monster at all in his opening hand, he will never move forward. So you might want to consider Dimension Hole as your option. The truth is that Dimensional is the only way to make sure that this duel doesn't completely die on its ass. In the case that you open up with a Dimension Hole, I actually do recommend playing that forward because it's still possible that he does move forward. However, in any other circumstance of him moving forward, it is absolutely the best card to play. You can warp forward, move to the left, you can discover Moisture Creature if you have a really high rank deck leader, which will just won't happen. That will just not happen. You will not be high enough rank to discover Moisture Creature there. But ultimately, you want to make the highest attack possible. Ideally, you actually can kill him in 2 hits here. That would be the goal. However, he can play trap cards such as Negate Attack, which can disrupt you. And again, this is just... really, you need to know a lot about this duel, otherwise it goes in shambles. And ultimately, a strategy, if he doesn't move forward in a speedrun, might be to exit the duel and try to play it out again. Now, the funny thing about this is, if you notice, his path is blocked again, but this time, unlike some of the footage before you might have noticed, he doesn't have any card to his left because that was a Negate Attack which you whiffed, so he moves all the way to the left. Now, he does that because otherwise he would be within 2 tiles of our Dragon Zombie. And even though the Dragon Zombie can't move 2 tiles, the AI just prefer to be safe and move 2 tiles away if it does, for whatever reason, have bonus movement. Now in this situation, what you can do is I play a second Dimensional here, which you're probably not going to draw into, but because he plays to his right, again, his path is blocked. So he is not going to move back to that location because his path is blocked, and at this point he probably is never ever going to move back to that spot unless you get rid of both of his monsters. So you kind of have to play the duel differently depending on all the circumstances in this duel. And again, this is kind of an argument that in the case where he doesn't move forward, Especially if you don't have Dimension Hole to try and attack him like this. You honestly might just want to leave it, you know. Okay, so now the last clip I am going to show you is if Lab Breaker is our best strategy. Now this is not the case in a no password speedrun, but in an any % password where you're running Lab Breakers. Let's just say, for argument's sake, we open up with a hand that we can't get him to move forward, but we have a Labyrinth Breaker. What should we do here? Should we commit to playing the Labyrinth Breaker? I would probably say no. I've tried this a few times, and it's actually very difficult to get him... You know, you can't really guarantee that he'll move back off the spot once you bully him. And the difference between Shadow Ghoul and Lab Breaker, you know, any card that actually turns a Labyrinth to normal, is that the AI will actually contest your monster. So if I play my Cannon Soldier here, and then I push it onto the Labyrinth tile and break it, the problem now is that, of course, when we bully him off the spot, he moves back. If he plays a monster that beats our Lab Breaker, we're in a lot of trouble. So again, we're kind of sitting here waiting for him to move back onto this spot. If he plays this 4k attack Blue Eyes White Dragon, in a situation where we have Shadow Ghoul, he doesn't attack because it's on the Labyrinth. But because we've cleared the Labyrinth, he is just going to straight up attack us. And if this happens to you, which it is very much possible, he is very much capable of beating like a Cannon Soldier with a Dark Energy, you're in a very bad situation now. There's really no intuitive way to make this fast. So what you might want to consider in this situation is actually not breaking it until you're ready to attack. This will save you one direct attack, which can make a massive, 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 massive difference. So instead of bullying him off the tile before an attack, you wait until you're in a position to follow up attack, and then you push your Lab Breaker onto the normal tile. Now I'm going to move forward and then play the highest attack possible combination in my hand and attack him directly. So even though he can still respond to this and attack it, we've done one full attack worth of damage, you know, 2k plus. Whereas in the other circumstance, we would need him to move forward and then attack him with the Cannon Soldier, and then follow-up attack with whatever else is in our hand. And this just basically gives us an opportunity to play a higher attack card than a Cannon Soldier, for example. Not that a 2800 attack Pumpkin is very realistic, but I mean, a Pumpkin with a Violet Crystal, or something like a Great Mammoth with a Violet Crystal is actually, it's reasonably realistic compared to, you know, a Cannon Soldier. Or, you know, if you have a Dharma Cannon, that card's not going to be anything. So again, if you notice, he can't beat this, and if we keep passing, he doesn't move back to this original spot because he keeps playing cards in the way. And you have no control over this, okay? This strategy still is... In this situation, you are basically hoping that he doesn't block his own pathfinding back to this spot so you can attack him again. You really don't have any better option. However, I will show you the rest of this clip because this is an important manip if you don't understand this. So the Pumpkin there is 2800 attack. I'm going to create a card that's 2700 attack, okay? So, because Pumpkin is a higher attack than this Great Mammoth here, he is actually more scared of the Pumpkin than he is my Great Mammoth. So, he doesn't actually want to move away from the Great Mammoth. Even though he moved the card out of the way, he doesn't. And the reason why is that his deck leader feels, or he feels more threatened if his deck leader is going to be attacked by Pumpkin, that's the higher attack card. So, in a situation like this, where, you know, he's faced with the opportunity to stay still or move next to a card that has more attack than the card he's next to, he stays still, and then so you can kind of pin your opponent. And this works for basically all AI, unless there is something interrupting them, or they are pathfinding something else themselves. That's just a handy hint that I may as well throw in there for anyone who wants to speedrun the game. It's just kind of like as a basic manip thing, really. Okay, actually, final advice to wrap things back to the whole 2-turn strategy. If you do get him to move forward, but you can't actually defeat him within 2 turns, he still tries to pathfind, but then he doesn't actually want to be next to your monster this time. So he moves 1 tile to the right, and then he's in the like middle corner. And then so at this point, you can choose to follow-up attack. Otherwise, if you don't have lethal, you can position your 2 monsters to pin him. And then his only real play is to perhaps respond to one of these monsters and attack them for lethal, in which case the turn after, you can attack with another monster, and then play another monster. You can attack with a monster that hasn't been killed, and then play another monster on top of that and attack him directly. And that's it for this video. So yeah, check out the ending videos and check me out on Twitch if you would like to come over and hang out. And hopefully you can implement this strategy yourself, and I will see you guys later on. Have a good one.